I'm kicking myself because I got my mortgage sorted in February. But look at that now. That is 5.69%. I think that's the lowest I've seen Islamic mortgages in absolutely years. A bit of a fun thing where we're going to ask ChatGPT about top investments that we should be making. We're going to be reacting to those.
I'm going to put a question to you, which is, do you think, A, like, would you do buy-to-lets? And B, do you think now is a good time to be doing them?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Mr. Mohsin Patel and Mr. Ibrahim Khan putting to the world to rights and reacting to live news. I've got the Mr. Patel, the famous Mr. Patel.
The Mr. Patel. Who's the Mr. Patel?
You are the Mr. Patel.
Very good.
Joining us live and exclusively from the United Arab Emirates. Mohsin, welcome as ever.
Thank you. Salam. How's it going? It's Friday. It's a wonderful day.
I know. And you've got a whole bunch of new kit now, haven't you? We're looking a lot crisper.
Hopefully the audio is better. The video will be coming next week.
You've been asking literally like every 5 minutes about the audio. And I can assure you,
better be good after this.
It's crystal clear. So coming up, we have an Islamic mortgage price war that has erupted, which is, I think, fantastic news. Normally, war is not a good idea, but when it comes to Islamic mortgage prices, I think the more war that we can have, the better. So we'll cover that. And we're also going to be talking to Mr. Ijaz Akram, the former Chief Technology Officer of Lloyds Bank, who is one of the experts in all things to do with engineering and cybersecurity and what have you, about the Co-op and Marks and Spencers and Harrods cyber attacks that we've been seeing a spate of over the last couple of weeks, and basically trying to make sense of that. Like, should you be negotiating with these hackers? What's going to be going on internally? Is our data compromised? We're going to be discussing that with him as well.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be good. And then we're going to wrap up, Mohsin, with a bit of a fun thing where we're going to ask ChatGPT about top investments that we should be making. We're going to be reacting to those, which I think you've been cooking up in the background, haven't you, Mohsin? So I'm looking forward to having some investment ChatGPT dal chamal very, very shortly.
That's it.
Okay, so we should talk about the incredible price war that has erupted in the Islamic mortgage arena, and I'm going to share with you a little snippet. Oh, I'm sharing with you the wrong snippet. Let me remove that and add this bad boy. So, as a man in the know, with lots of Islamic mortgage people in the contact book. This is a message that I had recently from one of the Islamic banks, where the rates are going down in the morning. And he said, "Send me his number, please." I mean, that's to do with someone that I was trying to connect up with this bank. And so, lo and behold, we see that the next day, StrideUp's rates actually fall, and I'll show you those on the screen as well, so you can see what they look like. So this is StrideUp's rates as it stands right now. And bear in mind, and I'm slightly kicking myself, although I don't think there was any other way to do it. I'm kicking myself because I got my mortgage sorted in February when I paid 5.84%, I think it was. But look at that now. That is 5.69% on a 2-year fixed. I think that's the lowest I've seen Islamic mortgages in absolutely years, which is I think is brilliant. I'm interested to hear your thoughts whilst I pull up what the Gatehouse mortgage is at the moment as well as a comparison, so you guys can see what's going on.
It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting what's going on. Why is this going on? I mean, obviously there's more competition in the market, but is there more than that? Is there more than that to it?
So I think that there's a whole bunch of things, right? There's a macro aspect to it, and then there's the whole competition aspect to it. So what's happening in the background is that StrideUp, in particular, are gunning hard to get their loan book, as it is known, or their finance book, up to £250 million, which is the magic number that then allows these Islamic banks to package this up as a sukuk and then issue it to the broader market. And then that releases a whole bunch of cash that they can then start again, building up another £250 million book, and then the kind of, the cycle repeats. And so StrideUp are gunning for that ASAP. And because of the way that, the commercials work, they need to get to there as soon as possible. And Gatehouse Bank, by the way, are in a very similar position. They're not in exactly the same position because they also have their savings accounts to call upon. So they have a different type of funding. But they are also very much geared towards, once you've got the money in, these banks are very incentivized to basically get rid of it, as on a commercial basis as possible. And so right now we've got Gatehouse, which had actually undercut StrideUp and brought it down from from the six-ish percentage mark to 5.74, and then StrideUp has come along and undercut them to 5.69, which is completely unprecedented. And I think the other aspect to all of this is you've got this whole macro thing going on as well, right? Where the Bank of England is they're going to be announcing their new rate possibly next week, is it? And everyone's expecting that that's going to be a bit of a cut. So some people are getting ahead of the curve on that as well. So I think that kind of explains it.
I mean, the mainstream, I was looking just before we got on, the mainstream rates are about 4-ish, give or take, basically 4%.
This is Barclays, what you're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that premium that we're seeing with the Islamic bit, is that typical, or is it slightly less than the norm?
Yeah, I mean, so, I guess within the Islamic mortgage world, there's only two basic players, right? On the residential side, you've got Gatehouse and StrideUp. And these are known as specialist mortgages in the industry because they're only provided by a small number of people for a small number of people, whereas this Barclays is as mass market as you can get, and this is probably the cheapest rate that they're offering at 3.91%. But the thing is, they're not offering that to everyone, right? So I actually think, to be fair, I don't think it's fair for us to compare the absolute lowest of the market in the mainstream versus Islamic mortgages. I think the average mortgage offer that's been given out is probably not 3.91 even in the mainstream. It's probably somewhere between 4 and 4.5. So the difference is probably not 1.78. The difference is probably somewhere closer to about 1. There is still a difference, but I think that's just because of the the scale of these two operations.
The question that I have for you, and I guess maybe we can get into this discussion now, given obviously what we do in terms of investments and stuff, is what does this mean for, because obviously when it comes to mortgages, there's like a few customers, right? You've got people like you back in Feb who are buying for a home, but then you've got people who want to buy it because they want to do buy-to-lets, and that's obviously been a very common strategy over the last kind of 20 years. We all know someone who's made a lot of money from buy-to-lets. So I'm going to put a question to you, which is, do you think, A, like, would you do buy-to-lets, and B, do you think now is a good time to be doing them?
I think it's a really interesting question. One thing I would say, I'm going to answer your question directly, Mohsin, but I wanted to, because someone might be wondering, hang on a second, are these Islamic banks ripping us off? And I wanted to just kind of, I saw this image and I thought it really vividly paints the picture. So this is the big four banks: NatWest, Barclays, HSBC, and Lloyds. They have 78% of the entire income that is being generated, as roughly the size of their percentage share of the market as well. Then you've got these international banks, and then you've got these other banks. So we're talking about Islamic banks, which are probably a sliver, tiny sliver of all of this. So when we're trying to compare between these absolute juggernauts and like a 1% or less slice, we have to kind of keep it in context. But I think coming back to your point around buy-to-let mortgages, I wonder if we should I'm thinking should we call our estate agent contact and see what he has to say? Or
who's our estate agent contact?
Zaid from High Castle. Should I try
All right.
him?
Why not?
Should I just randomly call him?
It adds some drama. What did he have to say?
Yeah, so I just talked to Zaid from High Castle, and Zaid was basically saying that right now a lot of landlords are exiting the market because of the whole changes to tax, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's happening in the market because of Rachel Reeves. And so he reckons that the fall in the buy-to-let mortgage rates, both in the conventional and the Islamic, is actually being driven because they want to entice people back into the market. So they're seeing a bit of a cooling off on the demand. So let's try and get them in by giving them lower rates. So he reckons that's what it is. But he did say before when I spoke to him that it's a bit of a topsy-turvy market. Like he's kind of, some things are kind of going in the favor of the market, and then some things are going against the favor of the market, and then it all kind of has netted off, thereabouts in the middle. So that's what Zaid had to say.
Interesting. I think that's a very long way of not answering the question, Ibrahim. But to give you my 2 cents, I don't, as you know, have any buy-to-lets, but I think the single biggest thing going for it is the leverage aspect, because despite everything else around, it's low yield and it's hassle and all of this kind of stuff, it is still pretty much the only investment that the everyday person can get leveraged without taking lots of crazy risk. And what that means is that you can, obviously, you can put 50 grand down and get, an asset that's worth, 200 grand, for example. And I don't know, that is compelling. One, whichever way you slice it, there isn't really anything else where you can do that, is there?
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is why, regardless of how much the industry insiders complain about what's been happening, the reality is they're going to still stick around. And I actually think it's a really coming back to your question that you asked me, like, is this a good time to actually be investing? If you look at Gatehouse, so Gatehouse have obviously been top trumped by Stride Up on the residential side at the moment, but they are actually offering some very decent rates and marking leading rates on the buy-to-let side. So they're offering 5.74 on the buy-to-let, and I think you discovered that there's some mad numbers that they're offering on the expat side, right? That's even better than even this.
You're right. Yeah. The expat numbers are really good. Like, I think what did we see? It was like 4. Was it 4.6?
Yeah, 4.5 or something.
Yeah, 4.59, 4.6 on the expat side, which is great. I mean, like for people working here in the UAE, for example, or Saudi, or wherever you are, looking at UK property is always attractive. People ultimately have a long-term view where they're going to go back to the UK, and so if you can get expat mortgages whilst you're earning tax-free, it is very attractive, to be honest with you.
And you know what, Mohsin? I think the thing that is driving all of this, it sounds like really simple, but it is actually just the fact that there is now competition in the market. And I think the buy-to-let Islamic mortgage market. I mean, you've got a third player in the running as well now, which is Offer, whose numbers I'm sharing at the moment. So they're offering 6.44. Then you've got about 6.04ish, I think, with Stride Up, and then you've got what the other guy, Gatehouse, were offering previously on the screen, which was 5.74. And the fact that you actually have this many people in the market for the first time, I think, is what's actually heating up the market and getting rates moving in the right direction. And I think the competition is only going to increase because we're seeing that there's other people who are actually applying for Islamic mortgage permissions at the moment. Offer want to come in and do a residential mortgage as well. So once they come in, I'm sure they're going to be super aggressive and keen to get as much market share as they can. So I think that 5.69, 5.74 is going to actually drift even further down, which it's brilliant for the consumer. I mean, for us as investors who are seeding some of this stuff, then at some point we're going to have to get slightly lower returns, but we're not really worried about that. I think actually the key thing is that the community wins here, which I'm really excited about.
We'd be happy, right? If then it's mission achieved on that front. And I also wonder if obviously years ago we had HSBC, we had Lloyds. I do wonder if some of these guys might just start looking at this market again, because the macro numbers are there, right? For the Muslim population to be growing, if they suddenly start seeing that actually, you know what, there's 4 or 5 lenders out there, they're all doing business, we can easily provide something that is cheaper than all of these guys because we've got the scale behind us, then all of a sudden, you know, that's a whole new dimension.
Completely agree. The second story, Mr. Patel, that we have is the Co-op is taking preventative measures because they're scared that they might be getting hacked. And Marks and Spencer, this august institution, has sadly already been hacked. And pretty much everyone's saying it's some kind of ransomware attack. And then latterly, we've now had Harrods, which apparently has been hacked as well. So there's an absolute spate of these things going on. And so we thought, who can we speak to who knows all about this? And so we've got none other than Ijaz Akram, who was a former CTO at Lloyds Bank. He was a very senior engineering lead at Amazon Prime as well. So I couldn't think of anyone else who would actually know what it's like, you know, sat on the inside of these companies. And, you know, Ijaz, firstly, welcome. I'd love to hear from you. What's going through the minds of the engineering team and the tech team at the moment, trying to grapple with this kind of huge attack?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me on, and obviously a very pertinent week for a number of these retailers. So you mentioned M&S and Co-op and Harrods, and there may well be more that sort of come up in the next week or two. I think a couple of things that we're seeing at the moment. One is that it's likely to be the sort of number one priority for the businesses, given the sort of high profile nature. Very fast moving circumstances can change really, really quickly. So also likely to be very, very high stress levels for everyone involved. And there's always going to be a sort of the balance between keeping people informed and being transparent, but mindful that you don't share anything that can potentially compromise you further. So the sets of procedures, systems which these companies will have in place, they'll make sure they kick in. They've got the right people in place. They've got the right availability in place. I don't think it's just an engineering thing as well. Likely the CEOs, the boards, investors, other people involved will want to have regular updates on this. So this extends far beyond the technology and engineering remit, given the sort of impact on revenue, reputation, and a whole host of other things.
Ijaz, I just want to comment on the whole cyber attack issue, right? So for us normal folks, obviously you hear about cyber attacks, and the best like real world example is a robbery, right? Someone comes in, they break your windows, they come in and they take everything. And you can, that's the kind of thing, like the easiest comparison for the everyday person. How do these cyber attacks happen? Is it like through an email, some malware? Is it someone's downloaded a dodgy link? What's going on?
Probably a combination of some or all of those. And as we're seeing also now with some of these attacks, companies' software systems tools are often supplemented with vast bits of third-party software as well. And potentially just needs one of those to be compromised for an attacker to gain access. So to take your point about a robbery, you know, the sort of back door is left open because the cleaner forgot to close it, and you may have all the best security on the front and alarms, etc., but somebody's able to sort of sneak in and do, you know, sort of commit some type of crime. And then the other thing, particularly with the sort of advent of social media at the moment, is the ability for attackers or hackers to really build up a profile of the type of people who work for that company, their social profiles, and then gather information gently and carefully over a period of time, which they can potentially use further down the line to compromise a company or a set of systems. So sophisticated social engineering involved, as well as the sort of more brute force attempt to get in via passwords and effectively the front line. And I think with things like artificial intelligence, you know, sort of becoming more prevalent, these types of attacks are just going to get more sophisticated.
So, like, what's the defense to that then? Because it sounds to me like what you're saying is that, I mean, let's say you've got a company of 20,000 people, right? Inevitably, someone's going to mess up somewhere. So, like, how can you defend against it?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because you're always either reacting or responding. You know, as much as you put out defenses and systems in place, somebody's always looking to compromise and breach that. I think with the companies, when they sort of face this type of thing, having their own sort of internal cyber teams is obviously a key part of this, having the sort of right staff who are proactive thought leaders. They're getting to industry events, they've got specialist help on them. often when something like this happens, you have to face some really difficult decisions. Like, do you have to switch systems off? Do you have to turn things off to prevent a potential malware or another attack spreading further inside the system? And that can have huge revenue and PR impacts as well. Cyber insurance policies, they're good things to have in place. Often they come with the ability to engage expert outside help. Some of these attacks are extremely sophisticated. They do require other people to be able to come in and help you as well. And I think as individuals in a company, it's boring, but when you get updates about updating your operating system and downloading the latest antivirus software and making sure that you do your security training, all of these things combined do make a big difference in terms of educating people and getting them ready for, if something like this does happen, that at least you've tried to be as proactive as possible.
Do you think, Ijaz, that there's a link between what we're seeing, because Co-op has gone on the back foot, Harrods, M&S, and then even some people are saying those data centers in Portugal recently. Do you think there's like some kind of new tactic or some kind of new thing that one of these hackers has discovered as that new vulnerability, and they're just aggressively exploiting it before it gets plugged? Or am I, or is this just kind of conjecture, or am I way off the mark here?
It's often quite hard to sort of speculate, I think, on these, and it's difficult. I mean, I've seen a number of reports about malware that's been distributed and redistributed, and it is exploiting some systems. But as I said, it's difficult to sort of really comment in this at this stage. I think what's quite interesting is if you look at some of the information that's come out from Co-op. So, for example, they've been asking staff to keep cameras switched on in meetings for attendees to verify themselves. I would say that's quite unusual because most companies have hybrid working patterns. These days, people dial into Teams calls or Zoom or Google Meets, etc. So asking people to effectively verify themselves seems to suggest there's some interesting things going on in the background. We also know that with M&S, they cancel a lot of orders, that internal systems have been potentially quite severely crippled. So there potentially could be a number of different vectors that are happening at the same time. And it could also be, which has been also theory thrown out there, that they're all using one common supplier for some software or some tool, and that is the one that's been compromised. Hence the sort of knock-on cascade domino impact on these multiple retailers or multiple organizations, because they are using a piece of software that's been heavily compromised.
You mentioned AI before, Ijaz. What's the future here? Next 5-10 years, AI, quantum computing, all of this kind of stuff. I mean, I imagine that it's only going to get more and more difficult, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you sort of look out where we're going, the sort of availability of algorithms, the availability of vast sets of data, the availability of compute power, and to sort of generate scenarios where you have more access points or you have more ways you can compromise systems, that's, I think, inevitably only going to increase. The plus side of that is also available to the good guys, right? So you can also patch things faster. You can pick up threats quicker because you have the sort of availability of various software data algorithms to be able to do that. If you look about quantum compute and its ability to effectively do calculations at lightning speed, you also have that potentially available to you. So I think we're going to see the same cat and mouse warfare game that's been played out for quite a long time in the cyberspace, which is threats will emerge, they'll be patched, more threats will emerge, they'll be patched, more sort of proactive efforts will happen. But we also have to remember that most of these things often center around humans and the vulnerability of humans. So the ability to be sort of open emails or compromised information or share information on social media. So I think the continuing education of people inside organizations is actually going to be probably the most critical thing that comes along.
Final question, Ijaz, before we let you go. Would you negotiate with these hackers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think there's a number of case studies where people have negotiated, and off the record, I hear of some companies who actually have a ransom budget. They put as part of their budget because they recognize that they just have to pay up sometimes, and they'll have a budget for that. Others, I was reading a case study recently where they brought in a team of hostage negotiators because they didn't want to pay up, and they effectively rebuilt all of their compromised systems, but bought a whole period of time whilst the hostage negotiators very cleverly discussed potential payments and etc. back with the attackers, but rebuilt all of their systems. It was a school, had a whole network of schools as well, so they couldn't afford to, nor did they want to. I think it really depends on the business, and it's very contextually relevant to the business. There are businesses that have effectively ceased to exist because they've been so compromised. In that scenario, you potentially would pay up. There's others where they haven't paid up, and they've also found out that not a huge amount of data has been compromised, so it was the right decision. I think it really does depend on the business. I wouldn't pick one way or the other. I would say one thing is to have really robust disaster recovery plans. Once again, can you bring your systems, your software, your data back up in a separate location quickly? That enables your business to continue to run, because if you have that, that gives you a huge amount of leverage and bargaining power as well in these types of scenarios.
Ijaz, it's been an absolute pleasure. You've educated us about what's been going on, and hopefully we'll get you back on very soon. Hopefully not because of another hack, but I'm sure on something else, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you very much. Thanks, guys. Have a good time. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
There we go.
So now let's turn to the third segment, Ibrahim. And I woke up this morning to some crazy text messages about the elections, the local elections that have been going on in the UK. And there was a mad result in Runcorn where Reform have won by 6 votes. Did you hear about that?
I haven't actually. Let me literally share my screen and look this up. So what? So this is the by-election, right?
These are the local elections that happened yesterday, right? So Runcorn, it was so tight they had to do a recount, and Reform have won it by 6 votes.
Oh my god! So they've now got how many people? They've got 6 people in Parliament, and they are absolutely, look at that. Look at the number of people that they have won. There was predictions that it was going to be an absolute bloodbath for the Conservatives in particular, and Labour as well. But then look at Reform. I mean, this is pretty scary stuff, I think.
It's mad. It's absolutely mad. I mean, to be fair, whoever the incumbent party is always has a tough time on the local council elections. But to see Reform doing this, I mean, yeah, it's a bit of a mad one. It'll be interesting to see what happens as the year goes on. Local elections are always a bit of a protest type situation, but still, the results are the results, aren't they?
Yeah. And I mean, you look at this number that Politics UK has tweeted out, that it was predicting, and they're quite accurate normally, it's predicting that you're going to have Reform at 522 councillors, from 0 to 522 councillors, which is the largest number of councillors in this particular election. I mean, does that make you want to stay in the UAE, or what do we make of this as a Muslim community?
I don't know about makes me want to stay in the UAE on that basis alone. I think I don't take too much from local elections, to be honest with you, because we're like, what? How long has Keir Starmer been in? About a year now, right?
Yeah, he's been in about a year. Feels like 5 years, but yeah.
Yeah, it feels like 5, but he's been in about a year. And I think that, we've always seen that these local elections are just an opportunity for people to just express their dissatisfaction. So, the winter fuel allowance being cut, and, all of this kind of stuff. And obviously Farage, he is, he's a good speaker. It doesn't matter what way you kind of agree or disagree with him. He does get people riled up. And ultimately, if that's the thing that's on your mind when you're going into the ballot, then it's clear, isn't it, what happens?
Who did your dad vote for? Well, I guess it's not a local election, but do you reckon your dad would ever be convinced to vote for Reform?
Yeah, probably. I think he would.
He strikes me as a bit of a loose cannon. Your dad.
He's a loose cannon. He's literally the classic swaying voter.
And then your father-in-law, Shafi uncle, he's he's an archdeacon of the Conservative Party, local Conservative Party. We're going to convince him, I think, to try and switch allegiances.
Switch sides.
I don't know what to yet, though. Maybe we'll get him to go into Reform. Can you imagine?
He would have won it. He would have won it clearly.
I know.
Who won in Bolton?
All right.
Check who won in Bolton.
All right. Let's have a look. So who won in? How do we check who won in Bolton? Were there Bolton local council elections?
BBC local election.
No local council elections in Bolton this year.
Oh, was it not? Oh, okay.
No. Otherwise, you'd have definitely been hearing from him already.
That's true. Yeah, we would have got him on.
Yeah. Give us his live analysis. All right, Mr. Patel, over to you for your masterpiece, where you've been cooking up something with ChatGPT's assistance, haven't you?
I have. So what we did is we thought that for this segment, we would ask ChatGPT to come up with a list of 5 investments. And the prompt that I gave it was as follows. Let me find it. All right, here's what I said to ChatGPT. I said to ChatGPT, give me a list of 5 investments to consider. It can be stocks, something quite esoteric, property, and something not usually considered as an investment. So for me, here is what it gave me. And while I'm talking, Ibrahim, can you spin up like some kind of spinner thing, and we'll get it to select one of these randomly, and we'll talk about it for a bit.
Right. So then I'm going to click it, and then it's going to. Okay. So whatever it lands is the one we're going to have to talk about. Oh no, it's literally the one that I didn't want to land on.
All right, let's talk about it anyway. We have to.
We have to
talk about it. Right.
You have to stick to the process.
Lego sets. Come
on.
Did you do any Lego? Have you done any Lego?
I've bought some Lego in my time. I've done some Lego in my time as well.
Have you dealt any Lego in your time?
I haven't dealt any Lego. No, I didn't realize this was like an investment category.
It is. It actually is. Surprisingly, you know, Suleiman in our team does this.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well, he plays with Lego.
He doesn't play with Lego. He collects it.
Yeah, that's what he tells you. When you get past the age of 18, you don't say I play with Lego. You say I collect Lego.
It's true. But yeah, he collects Lego. So he was telling me that what you have to do is you have to look, you basically have to get a sense of which ones are going to go out of production, because the ones that go out of production obviously then become, obviously the supply is limited, right? And then they become, they appreciate in nature. And he was telling me that there were some that he has in his collection that have appreciated quite a bit. And I do also know other people that have done this as well. I personally have not done it, but I think, I mean, if I zoom out, I think this sits in the kind of category of investments. I mean, you can very safely call it alternative investments. But I think the issue with it is that if you're trying to do it kind of professionally, is very, very difficult, because you can't deploy lots and lots of money into this. So I think that it's great to do this kind of thing. Even the other one, you know, the vintage watches option that came up. So I think these are great if you're playing with like a certain amount of money and you know the space quite well. And I think particularly if you're like quite young and you know the space quite well, and you're playing with in and around like, I don't know, 5K, 10K, those kinds of figures, where you could actually, you know, buy some, sell some, and you probably make a decent ROI, but it doesn't scale is the problem. It's fun though.
Yeah, agreed completely. Unless I wonder if, you know, the provenance of these pieces can jack up the prices, can't they? So maybe you take your Lego set and you try and get David Beckham to play with it or something, and then you sell it as a, you know, David Beckham's Lego set, or I don't know, something along those lines. Like watches have that, don't they?
I guess everything has that, but it's the same problem though, isn't it? That's very difficult to scale that. The other thing, by the way, is that this reminds me of you know Sahib in our team is into board games. So he introduced me to a board game, and then I realized that you can just buy the kind of fake version of it on like Temu and, you know, all these other things. Like the official version is like 30-40 quid, as it often is with a lot of these board games. But, you know, there's always a Chinese version, right? And we're seeing the same with cars and everything now. And these things are like, it's not like they're badly built, like they're really, really well built. So it's not like years gone by where it was like, you know, a bit of a knockoff and you'd rather actually buy the real thing. These things are, you know, in some cases like a complete carbon copy. So I wonder if it's the same with Lego.
It probably is, but I can't suspect that the Chinese Lego as an investment is a particularly good idea, though, surely.
Probably not, but what I meant is that whether that detracts or maybe actually makes Lego all the more attractive, right? Because that's the real deal.
Right, I see. Interesting. So the punchline, folks, is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mohsin, that it's all good fun for the amateur investor, but for serious investors, then this is not going to be something that scales. And if you are, looking to be a serious investor and put your, eggs into a particular basket where you're going to become a domain expert, then I think you'd be better off putting it into an area that can actually absorb potentially millions or maybe even tens of millions of pounds.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Brilliant. Well, we shall see what ChatGPT has in store for us next week. And if you guys have enjoyed this, please do let us know in the comments below. If you'd like us to cover particular investments, particular news stories, let us know what you would like to see from us, because we are here as your performing monkeys. We are more than happy to, if you want Mohsin to do something mad on the screen, let us know. Or I guess myself as well. I mean, I'm not sure I want to do it, but with Mohsin, I can encourage him and cajole him to do it. So if you'd like him to do, I don't know, like press ups or sit ups on the screen, we'll make that happen, inshallah.
Inshallah. Maybe not after a heavy meal though.
That's true. Until next time. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.